Okay. So, we're going to be discussing the PlayStation Showcase here. Discuss some of the trailers here. A little bit of announcements that came out. I wouldn't say anything that was like too huge, really. Just a few trailers that popped up at State of Play that happened, and then one of them being Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways here. So, Sage, you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, I'm very excited for this. So far, this is Resident Evil 4, just the base game. It's probably my game of the year as of right now. We'll see how that changes as these last couple of months come. Um, but this mode was a big part of the original game. Now, not on the launch version. This did get added a bit later with the PS2 version, I believe. So like the kind of vanilla GameCube Resident Evil 4 was missing this, and then it got added in later. But the original mode, and
Are
people
these
love
years?
it, but it is a relatively small thing. It's kind of all reused assets. You're going through the same couple environments. It's pretty short. You've got a couple of calls with a contact, and the story is super minimal. But this looks like it's going to be expanding on that a lot, like the base game did for the original already. And you are looking at Wesker, first of all, being a much bigger presence than he was in the original. And then on top of that, there were a few areas that were cut. You're going from the original to the remake. There's stuff like there's a big part with like this laser hallway that's very over the top and kind of matrixy. There's one big boss fight that was missing from the remake, but it appears that all of that cut content is all going to be making its way into this expansion, which I really like. I wasn't too. I kind of expected that because they did such a good job, and those cut pieces, it seemed weird for them just to leave them out entirely. But I think you're getting everything that people might have found to be missing with the initial piece.
Hmm. And then here you're going to be playing Ada Wong.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of concurrent with Resident Evil 4. It's just kind of like what was going on throughout the game, but from her perspective. Like I said, the original version of this, it was pretty basic. You were just kind of going through the same couple of environments. And then getting like a call at the end of each chapter and talking with Wesker for a minute. This seems like, yeah, big expansion on the narrative of this. I think this is going to be, it's going to just be much more involved than the original version. The original version felt more like a fun arcadey side mode, and this feels like a proper story expansion.
Hmm. Okay. So this is Wesker kind of before he becomes like the more big bad that you know him in than the other things, kind of, or
So the timeline's a bit is all over the place with Resident Evil. So Wesker's only like the big villain really in one game, which is 5. Um, and he's only in 3 games total. So he's in the first one, and he's like, you don't know he's a bad guy yet, right? And then he kind of has a fake out death, and then pops up at very very briefly at the end of Code Veronica, which is so far been kind of ignored in the
There's
remake
these
continuity. And but that kind of pops him up and reestablishes him, and then he appears in this Resident Evil 4 expansion, and then he's the main villain in 5, and that's it. That's kind of all he is, or all of his appearances throughout the whole franchise. And part of them expanding on this also feels like we're definitely building up to maybe doing a 5 remake in the near future. They've been, I mean, after how successful these have been, I would be shocked if they stopped after 4. I'd be very surprised if they just stopped it.
okay, but 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's like I don't think 5 is as well received as 4 or 2 or.
Critically, 5 is definitely not nearly as well received. Commercially, it is, I think, the second highest selling Capcom video game of all time. So
Okay.
in terms of just having a financial incentive to do it, I think that is there, even if like the fans had a negative kind of feedback to that game. And then I think there are also a lot of people that do really like that game as not a horror game, maybe not even so much as a Resident Evil game, but as a co-op.
Mm.
And so I think there's definitely opportunity to improve it in a remake. I think I see there's a lot of small ways, and I think they could take the basic frame of five, reinterpret it a bit, kind of change some elements around, get rid of that green filter that's on the entire game for whatever reason that all games in like 2008 had. But yeah, and I think they've done some things in four. Like there's a one of the chapters in the base game. You spend the whole chapter running around with Luis as like an AI companion, and the AI is really solid there. And one of the big things that held five back as a Resident Evil game during its original release was the AI is terrible. It's constantly using your health items when you don't need it. It's wasting its ammo, its resources. And playing the chapter with Luis and four, it kind of felt almost like they were experimenting with like, all right, how do we implement the AI in a way that actually works so that when we do get around to doing a five remake, it's not frustrating to babysit this AI if you're not playing the two-player mode. So it actually feels like a smooth and consistent experience.
Yeah. So I saw that I was pulling up the other trailer. I saw Ada Wong, some gameplay there. It seems like you're doing a lot of more interesting things. She used kind of like a grappling situation where she kind of goes into enemies, does a kick. And how does Ada Wong play differently than other characters like Leon or Claire or
Well,
uh,
in the original version of Separate Ways, for the most part, she didn't. It was like you had a grappling gun and you could jump up on some rooftops in certain areas. And then she had like a crossbow that was unique to her. Other than that, it really wasn't much of a difference. So in this footage, what we're seeing, I do think they're doing more to differentiate her. She seems much more acrobatic. The grappling hook, like you mentioned, it seems like it looks like you're pulling some like full on stuff here where you're just zipping around the environment. So that's a level of mobility I don't think has been in any of these games before. And then being able to, if you stagger an enemy and then being able to use the grappling hook to do the melee attacks, that's also due because no one's ever had like range like that before. I mean, you have your guns, but if you're playing as Leon and you get pop a guy in the knee so you can get up and kick him, you still have to close that distance before he's able to stand up. I mean, if there's any concern, I could almost imagine being able to do that from afar could almost make it too easy, but I'm sure they'll do something to balance.
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and that's coming out in a few days, September
Yeah,
21st.
yeah, Thursday. Super excited. It's yeah, what 5 day different or 6 day difference between announcement and release.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. All right. So, want to move on to the Spider-Man trailer? Spider-Man 2?
Sure.
All right. So in this Spider-Man 2 trailer, just like kind of a more explanation about the game. We see this is an expansion trailer. We see that more has been added to the city of New York. They added the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens, I believe they said in this that they added.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice. And they added that because of the Miles Morales character, because he's from Brooklyn. And they also announced that you're going to be able to seamlessly switch between the two characters as well. So, like one character, you can get tired of them and then switch to another character. And I thought that was very nice. And it's I saw it displayed there. That looks really, really good. Still looks like a gorgeous game still. And then, I mean, do you ever get kind of tired of like, I don't know if people are fucking with people or what when they say like you basically just reusing the same map again. They just I don't know if people are fucking with people when they say that because it's like I don't know what you're supposed to do with the city of New York, but I mean I don't know what
Right.
you're supposed to make it different. So of course you're gonna reuse the same map that you used in the first game. Just make it a little bit bigger and everything like that. So what are some of your thoughts on this trailer?
Yeah. So one of the things immediately, like you mentioned, adding Queens and Brooklyn. I love that. That's something that we've had here and there in some of the older games, but this new series it's so fully realized and fleshed out. So it's really nice to get that extra area. It's cool too because when they first brought out the Miles Morales game, showing that on the running on the PS5 and kind of the difference between the PS4 Spider-Man and either the PS5 remaster of that or the Miles Morales game. One of the big features that they talked about right away was how quickly the the whole system can load the city in, right? Because for the longest time in video games, one of the biggest hurdles as a game developer that you have to deal with is draw distances, right? The game can only load so much of the environment at once. So with a lot of open world games, you have to do all these tricks and kind of play with your perception. You can only see so far into the distance of the city. And now the fact that you are able to load all of it pretty much instantaneously, like the game really, it has no tricks now built into it to kind of obfuscate your perception of what you can see. The whole thing's just there all the time, and that's also the only reason they're able to do the web wings and do that really high speed flying. Because if that had been in the first game on the PS4, you would have been moving so fast that you would have gone past what the game could even load in. Like you would have started seeing like the flaws and holes in the actual architecture of the code. And so it speaks to just how much of a leap these next gen consoles really are. Even if sometimes visually it doesn't seem like as big of a jump forward, being able to do something like that with the environment, that proves just how big of a jump in technology here it is. They also wanted to mention, they said something like 65 suits between them, and each of the 65 suits has like 4 different color variations. I mean, they're just packing this game with content. They're just packing this game with so much to do. And being able to switch between the characters on the fly. I was also reading that whichever one you are, you will be, if you look for them, you will be able to come across the other character just stopping random crimes or like doing stuff kind of on their own. Like you can always find them in the environment somewhere acting, which I think is a really nice thing that really makes it kind of feel alive too.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah. And you mentioned the web wings; those look really great to be able to glide, everything like that. That looks really nice. Seems like a vast improvement. Because we got this game over a decade ago with something like Batman Arkham Asylum. Where think
Mm-hmm.
like that looks much much better here. 10 years later, something like that. Where they added that feature. Gorgeous looking game, and then they talk about in the trailer how you have your app that carries over from the last game. Where you can just stop random crime there, robberies, things like that, which is really nice. And how, like, in certain areas they may call for a specific hero, like in Brooklyn, they're going to call maybe more for Miles Morales than they will Peter Parker, which is really cool. And you mentioned all the different variations of the suits that are here. There's some of the newer ones. I saw the one where Miles had the suit where he had the Puerto Rican flag on. I thought that looked really cool. Haven't been too impressed with a lot of the other suits in it, like a lot of the hoodies and kind of the capes and things like that. With a lot of them, I don't think they look as good as I've seen before in the other games, but that's fine. You know what I mean? I didn't rotate through a whole lot of suits in the Spider-Man game. What about you? Did you rotate through a whole lot of suits?
Not a ton of them, to be honest. I appreciated them being there, but I do kind of like to just go like, what is he supposed to look like? Make him look like. And I also think, in the promotional material, we're probably going to see a lot of the more superfluous ones, right? These ones that are going to be just like different geometric patterns and colors, kind of. And then I bet once the game comes out and you can actually go and look at what they all are, that's when you're going to start finding like the ones that are really memorable from specific comics or iconic other costumes the ones you'd actually really want to use. They're probably going to save that for the full release. But yeah, I didn't really use those a ton. Maybe on like a new game plus mode, just flip around them a little bit more. But as far as like a first playthrough goes, I'm gonna stick with whatever the game like actually wants.
Yeah, because I think I just switched through kind of like 3 or 4 maybe. And then you see some other kind of different villains here. Mysterio, you see, I'm gonna try to get to him in the trailer here. Some people had an issue with the way Mysterio looks. Did you ever have an
Did
issue
we
with it?
actually get a look at him?
Yeah,
I noticed the symbol in the sky when you're kind of they're flying around a little bit, but I didn't catch that they actually showed him directly.
Uh, I believe so. I believe it's coming up in this trailer pretty soon if I'm going to see him. But yeah, Mysterio's in here. Of course, you see Venom. So you see where Peter Parker has the Venom costume, and then you see Venom when he's outside, where you see Craven. Oh, there he goes right here. So this is supposed to be Mysterio.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I got to see him in like the full costume because I'll be honest. Outside of the suit, I do kind of imagine Mysterio as being kind of schlubby. So I feel like if that's like his supervillain look, I don't like that. But if that's like his schlubby, I'm just walking around look, I think that actually fits. It depends on which version of it that's supposed to be. Right?
Yeah, and then before him, you saw Craven the Hunter, so he's also going to be in here. So you saw a little bit of him, but
Oh
we got
yeah.
introduced to, so that's really going to be really good. Yeah, I mean, this game has to be probably one of the most anticipated games of the year coming
Oh,
out.
I think it's super high up there. Super high up there. I mean,
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat, Spider-Man, Alan Wake, probably top three for me. This is going to be, and then the other two are a little more niche. This is definitely has much more broad appeal than those other couple I mentioned. This is when people do superhero stuff well, it still makes a ton of money. They just got to do it. They just got to do it well. I think this
yeah.
proves that.
Yeah, you see them there teaming up here. You're doing the combo moves. Him and Peter, Miles and Peter there, which is really nice. Is there anything that you've heard from this game that you already go like, okay, that's going to be a big improvement from the last game?
I think the web wings, right? How fast you can zip around the city and just get through the map, and just how quickly you can get to a place. Because like there's a fast travel system in the first one, but I don't know. That
Mhm.
takes a lot of the fun out of it, right? Like the traversal mechanics are a big part of what makes a game like fun to play. And so to add to that, that seems like a really big improvement. There's also a HUD thing that's it's kind of right at I think it's close to the beginning of the trailer, but they show, uh, you're sitting on the edge of a rooftop and you see all the icons over the city. And it looks like they've done a better job at like you don't have to pause the game, pull up your map screen, and look at where all the little icons are. It looks like it's much easier for you to go in the game itself, hit a little thing, and it just kind of shows up on the map, like exactly what you're looking at. It's like here's where this is, here's where that is, here's where this is. Everything just kind of laid out before you. And that seems like just more fluid, just better to navigate, just a little more organic.
Okay, I'm trying to find. I think there's a spot in the trailer where it's like Miles. He's hanging off of like a water tower there, and then
Yeah, and you see like a ton of icons kind of all raise up at the same time.
yeah, I'm trying to find that spot there. But yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, that looks really good there. Yeah, I can't wait for this. This is gonna be really
Oh, and
great.
then that's one other thing too. And that's exactly what's playing on screen right there. There's a bunch of, like you've got the Mysterio symbol in the sky. You see Miles jump off a roof, chasing that drone. And they describe in the trailer how it seems like they took a page out of. Did you play Ghost of Tsushima at all?
Is this what you're talking about right here?
Yes, that there you go, that exactly. So that just seems like a much easier way to go. Like, oh, where's this thing? Cool, it's over there. I don't even need to pause the game to find out. I could just see it and look. Ghost of Tsushima had this great little thing where you could say, I want to follow the main story, or I want to follow this chain of side missions, and then you could pick something, and then when you go into the game, there are just kind of subtle gusts of wind that blow in the direction you're supposed to go in. And so it keeps the HUD super simple, and like there's
Mm,
not a lot you're actually having to look at as far as like waypoints and stuff. But you can just go like, oh hey, there's a natural organic piece of the environment that is signaling what direction to go. And so they said stuff like that, like, hey, you'll just see a drone flying around. It's not necessarily going to be like marked by a big symbol, but if you see one, you can go follow it and that'll lead you to something. And so having these really natural kind of, these pieces that just feel like a part of the world as indicators of what to do, I really like that. That's something I'm a really big fan.
nice. So this is coming out in what, October, right?
The seven, no, seven, 20th, 21st.
Let me see. Does it give a date at the end of this trailer? Let's
It's
see.
yeah, it must.
Yep, October 20th.
October 20th. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Can't wait.
Let's see. Move on to discuss the Ghostbusters trailer here. So
Hmm.
this is the Ghostbusters VR game that's going to be coming out. Oh, why'd I do it like that? My bad. Yeah, and this is it's called Rise of the Lords. I think it's called Rise of the Lord. Make sure I got that correct here. Yep, Rise of the Ghost Lord, which is some gameplay trailer here for this. I know that there was that I'd never played it, but I heard that Ghostbusters video game that came out on like it was on the PS3 that it premiered on.
I
I
know
heard that was
exactly what you're talking about. I never played it either, but I also did hear good things.
yeah, I did hear pretty good things about it. I've never played a VR game myself, actually. I don't have the whole setup of VR. Do you have that?
Oh, I got to try a demo stand like once, like way back in the day when I worked at a game store. And it was cool, but it was simple. It was literally just like you didn't even play it. It was just a pure visual thing where you were like lowered down in like a shark cage, super deep underwater. It was cool, the sense of depth perception that it kind of was able to trick your brain into having. I did appreciate it, but yeah, I've never really gotten my hands on like a full game for any VR stuff.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever done the like VR is when it's been like a setup display thing where people be like, "Hey, try it out," and I went up there and tried it
Right.
out and everything, and people watch you look like an idiot, swinging around. So yeah, there's that, and it was cool. I mean, I don't think VR is at the point where, for me at least, where I'm like, I get heavily invested in it. I think maybe because of the graphics, the way it kind of look, I guess it's like, it's I don't know, it's all right, I guess. And for I think Ghostbusters, I think that makes kind of a good VR type situation, like you see where you're here and you assemble your own. What's it called? What's that weapon called? I'm blanking on.
Proton pack,
Yeah,
is that
your own
right? Okay.
proton pack there. And you have your what's the meter called that you use to radiate ghost? Ectometer or something like that.
To be honest, I'm not sure. I was gonna say e meter, and that's definitely
Maybe
not.
maybe it's even, but yeah. So I guess that kind of works there for like a VR game, Ghostbusters. There, if you're into that type of thing, and
I
have
think if
fun.
you already have a VR, this seems like it would be a fun thing to check out, but I definitely don't think it would encourage me to actually be like, oh, I got to get one now to play this. I think the most encouragement, actually, and there was a brief trailer for it, but the Resident Evil 4 VR, that would be something where I'm like, okay, well, that seems like it might be worth experiencing.
Yeah. And this comes out October 26th. So yeah, it's pretty good for Halloween coming out close to around that Halloween time there. Yeah, decent. I mean, really not really much to talk about with it. It's just it looks like a maybe fun game. How much are VR games? Are they like
I think the games themselves are pretty standard price. Probably around the 60 to 70 mark, depending on if whether it's like a AAA or more of an indie game. The actual like VR, the whole VR rig itself is like 500. I mean, it's like about as expensive as an actual PS5 console. So
oh jeez. Man.
yeah, that's the thing is, and there's still, a lot of the games feel like they could be fun if not gimmicky, and I just don't think you could sell a whole platform on that. Like you gotta start putting out some like big games that are tailor made at the same level of quality that non-VR games are to really get me interested.
Yeah. I've seen some people have fun with like if you do the boxing games and you really, do it and all that other stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's fun. It looks kind of, but I wouldn't spend all that money for it to get the whole setup and do all that. I mean, you got to
No,
bring some more stuff to the platform there.
get that
All right.
Half-Life Alex on there and I'll think about it.
All right. Well, all right. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer for this came out during State of Play. There. So what are your thoughts on this?
So I'm pretty excited for this. I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy guy in the world. I played some of the like old 8-bit ones. Seven kind of fall off after seven. There's a lot of Final Fantasy games, right? There's like 16 main titles.
Yeah.
Many of them have sequels like 13.1, 13.2, 13.3. it's a big mess for a lot of it to me. It's a little hard to keep track of. But I do think seven, at least for me personally, I think seven kind of stands out from a lot of the rest of them. And you look at especially if you go back and look at like the original seven, you compare it to this. I mean, the character models, their hands look like little paintbrushes. You don't even have separate like fingers. So it's one of those where it's like it's been so long since seven happened that like these it's a segue to that makes me laugh. But it's been so long that it's a worthwhile graphical upgrade. There is actually a pretty intriguing story that it's very very environmental too, right? Very very much corporations kind of seeding the energy out of the environment and causing pollution. And the main characters at the start of the original, it's like you're a mercenary that's been hired by this like group of like eco terrorists to blow up these like basically like nuclear power plants that are like killing the planet by like siphoning energy off of it. You're gonna get a lot of your kind of typical anime tropey.
I guess.
Sorry, say that again.
I say, you're basically what, Antifa, I guess, basically in Final
I
Fantasy.
I would almost describe it as like some of the more violent things Poison Ivy does sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe not that far, but getting close. But yeah, so this is the second. It's like the remake has been split into three parts. This is the part two. The first one came out in 2020, I think 2020, and that covered about roughly 5 hours of what was the original game, but it expanded that into about a 40-hour RPG unto itself.
Wow.
And so this is the part two of that, and so this isn't going to cover the rest of the entire original game, but it will cover a large chunk of it, and it is expanding. I think they said this is roughly like 100 hours worth of content.
Wow.
I think that's going to be in this one. Now, I think one of the big things with this is it's not just a remake. It is also a sequel. A big part of the story in the first game is that you literally have a mechanic of the game where you are actively diverging like timelines like from the events of what was going on before. So the first one pretty much stuck, like I'd say 99% close to the plot of the OG, but it did diverge a bit, and it very much ended in a way where it's set up for the second and third parts to go in totally wildly divergent directions. So there could be a lot here for people who know the original by heart. I think it's also, Final Fantasy is not my favorite series. A lot of the games, I think, especially the more recent ones, have been a little disappointing. But I do think I liked the first part of this remake quite a bit, and I think that this is, 7 is kind of stands out as such a classic that I think it's a good entry point, or even maybe it's the only one you need to play if you are interested at all in the franchise. It's the best place to start, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember playing Final Fantasy VII way back when it was on the PlayStation 1, where it came in like a nice set where you had those double disc thing there. I remember that. That was really nice. And the remake, like I said, it's one that, a lot of these remakes, maybe they're becoming a little too much, but when Final Fantasy VII happened, it was like you said, the graphical update alone just was so much better. And then on these new consoles and the expansion of the world and the game and the mechanics of it, from this PlayStation 1 now to this new generation of gaming, it felt like a totally new game,
Yeah.
Which was really great. And with this Rebirth trailer here, like expanding it more, like so there's going to be another sequel after this one to finish out the Final Fantasy game, because there's just so much material here. Do you think that it's, the whole breaking it up, do you think it's a way to sucker people out of more money? Do you think they should have just waited until like, okay, we could do all 3 games at once and drop it in like the disc set when it first came out, like when you had it? Or do you think it's better that they break it up and then allow people to play a little bit of it this game, then because this sequel's coming out February 29th, 2024. Do you think that's better, or do you think it would have been too long for them to complete all 3 parts of it?
Yeah, I think there's a good argument for both perspectives on that. But I think where I land is I think I'm actually glad that they broke it up the way they did. And because the first part, it could have easily come out and felt padded and overlong and unnecessarily like stuffed with things. And some of the side missions in that game are not the best, but if you're following like just the main plot line, I think all of the expanding that they did all felt natural. Like it didn't feel like it was just buying itself time to last longer. Like it felt like they really sat down and thought about how they could develop the world and really show you this place and allow you to explore it in a way that felt worthwhile. And so if this one, if it lives up to that standard, then I am actually glad that they broke it up into pieces, because it feels like there is so much more depth to everything than there was in the original. And that's not to put the original down at all. It's they did what they could with the tech at the time. But that just shows you just how much possibility there is now in what we can do and or what they can accomplish. I guess we'll see when it comes out if it feels like they're putting stuff in there unnecessarily. But at least so far, I think they've made the expansion feel like it's really worthwhile.
Yeah. And again, gorgeous looking game. Does look really amazing. You have Sephiroth in this, who's being the bad bitch that he is, as always.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of really great stuff you could see here. Yeah, Segway part here. It's really
I
nice.
don't know why that's there, but I guess we'll find out in February.
Just throwing stuff in there, man. You gotta throw everything in there. Final Fantasy. Man, yeah, there's a lot of Final Fantasy. I don't think I played maybe some after 7. I'm not huge into Final Fantasy. I just really love 7. I think 7's really great. Probably because I
Yeah.
just love Cloud as a character, and that whole concept of like the eco terrorist and the corporation aspect of it, I think is really cool too. And really nice. So that's what attracted me about it. But yeah, very, very nice. So yeah, February 29th. Yeah, that's a perfect shot of Sephiroth right there. Yeah. Let me go back a little bit. Yeah.
And they did confirm that Sephiroth will be, you know, for a portion of the game anyway, featured as a, fully fleshed out playable character, because, if played the original, there are some flashbacks. I won't say too much about what happens in the story, but you do get flashbacks where you get to kind of walk around with him a little bit. And in the original, that's a relatively short sequence. But with all the expansion that they're doing, I imagine that we're actually going to get a good chunk of like Sephiroth gameplay too.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? Look at that. Beautiful. He's gorgeous. I mean, why wouldn't you want to play as him, right? Yeah. All right, one more trailer, and then we'll be heading out. So Avatars, Frontiers of Pandora. You said you saw it, but you weren't that interested in it. This is a video game about Avatar, but James Cameron films. The thing is, I mean, you always hear the discussion about why would you make a video game into a movie, because a video game is already so immersive. Why would you ever want to turn it into a movie? You can't get the same experience. But I guess this is the reverse of that, because I think the film Avatar, Avatar 2 especially, was so very immersive at bringing you into this world of Pandora and the people, that now that it's turned into a video game, that from the looks of it, it's like I don't think you can be as immersive as the movie was. I just don't think you can capture that same effect there. What say you? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, pretend for a second, just for the sake of argument, that I am a big fan of the movies. I think trying to come at it from that perspective, looking at this footage, I still feel like it's a giant open world checklist red flag of a game. This is reminding me a lot of the bloated and overstuffed just it's a lot of the Ubisoft games in general. I think especially like Far Cry has become, it's like the same game every time it comes out. You've got this open world that's way too big. You've got probably a bunch of capture points, right? Enemy camps. You've probably got, I mean, even just some of the game. It almost kind of looks like they just put an Avatar skin over a Far Cry game. To be honest, a lot of this gameplay. And I think Far Cry, like, and I think there's some good stuff in the Far Cry franchise, but I think especially in like recent releases, it's just become such a checklist. It's kind of the same game every time. Assassin's Creed suffers from this too. It's bloated. It's too big. It's a you pull your map up and it's just littered with like icons, and it's probably only 6 or 7 different things you can do. It's just that you're going to go do them 1,000 times each. So like even if I was to pretend that I was a big fan of Avatar, just looking at that as a video game in general, it makes me think of everything that exhausts me about the open world genre in general.
Hmm. Okay. So the story is you're going to be taking control of a Navi orphan who's raised and trained as a soldier by the RDA before being put into suspended animation and waking up 15 later in an abandoned facility. I don't think you don't play as any human character here. Just play just as Navi. Like you said, open world game kind of going on here. Does have a lot of similar kind of open world aspects to it that you may see in many other games. Is going to put a unique spin on it because it is Pandora, and the world of Pandora could be interesting. Could play around with it. You know what I mean? If you have somebody who's creative enough to explore that in a video game, like you see in the game here, you get to ride those. I don't know what the exact name of them, but these dragon-looking bird creatures, whatever, which that could be fun if you do that. Um, it probably you'll be able to collect a lot of resources. You see the person's picking fruit and things like that. You get to hair fuck the tree or whatever you do there. Where you do that, I don't know what that. Probably that's how
I
you
guess
like.
that I guess you can't do that in Far Cry.
Yeah, that's how I guess you like. I bet that's probably like a saving point, maybe what you do, like you save or something like that.
Mm.
There. So yeah, I mean that could be kind of fun there. Like if you ride on this there. Yeah, picking fruit, gathering other materials, making food, things like that you see here. Um, I don't know. If I had to guess, like what rating is this game going to get when it comes out? I think it's going to be just mixed. It's going to be like mediocre. It's going to get like somewhere like six out of tens, 5 out of 10s. I would say.
That's totally what I see. Yeah.
The graphics of the game, they look fine. They don't look too spectacular. Nothing really like mind blowing wise. Like we just saw with like Spider-Man 2. We just saw with Final Fantasy, games like that. Yeah, it just kind of looks,
Even Resident Evil, which is still like slightly held back because there's a PS4 version of Resident Evil 4. Even that I think still looks better than this.
yeah. So it almost looks kind of like early PS4 era video game, kind of like okay, it's decent.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Cat Whitney says, seems like a cash grab. Yeah, trying to cash in an IP Avatar. It's coming out around the same time as when the movie came out. Like it's coming out December 7th. So let's get that December slot there. So maybe people going like, oh, maybe people get mistaken. Maybe they think they're buying a ticket for Avatar. Maybe they buy the game instead. Like, oh shit, I thought this was another Avatar movie. And maybe
Put a
trick
ticket
people
for the movie in the box. Maybe you can get some people to get it that way.
yeah, sell tickets for the next Avatar, inside the game. Yeah, it's like, hey, if you buy the game, you get a free ticket to Avatar 3. Yeah, try to sell it like that, 2 for 1. Yeah, that's about it, really. I mean, yeah, that's kind of it. I wish I could say more about it. I mean, I think like I said, I think Avatar as a property could be fun to play with, if you get enough people. But this just kind of just looks average, just very average.
I think it maybe be more interested or maybe see more potential in it if it was a different studio, different company that got to work on it. I mean, Ubisoft, I think in general, I think has just become one of the laziest, least creative game companies in the whole industry. I feel like, I mean, every Assassin's Creed game plays the same, every Far Cry game plays the same,
What
every
was the
other
last
game that
big
which
hit that they
what's
had?
that?
What was the last big hit they had?
The last game that I personally enjoyed was the Egyptian Assassin's Creed. That was like 2017.
Okay.
And even
Egyptian.
then, that had been like years before that, between that and the game before that I enjoyed. So they have not had a great track record lately. It's just been kind of dull and boring. And I feel like they even had an executive who said in interviews like that he had a mission statement for every franchise or IP that they own to be an open world game. And I'm like, that doesn't fit for everything though, and it leads to so much sameness, and just a lack of creativity and bloat in the games. I mean, I'm right now that's like bottom of the industry for me. Out of
Mm,
all the like EA, I'm like more right now than Ubisoft.
wow. Jeez. I'm looking at the list of things here that they have. Hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Assassin's Creed. I see Prince of Persia, right? That's supposed to be like a remake, right? Like a kind of reimagine.
Oh well, so there's two Prince of Persia games that are like technically in development. There's one that's coming out in January. Actually, I'm gonna give that one a chance. It's like more of a 2D Metroidvania kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But they announced a remake of the like the classic like Sands of Time Prince of Persia, like 2020. I think they announced it. They showed off a reveal trailer for it. And it looked like I mean, this game was coming out 2020 for the PS5, and it looked like it was, maybe late gen PS3. Like it did not look up to standard at all. They delayed it. They've changed what studio is working on it. It's been 3 years since that happened. We haven't gotten a single update on that remake, so I don't know if it's even really happening or not anymore. But I mean, they that felt like a cash grab. That felt like it's like, right, we people like this IP, and let's put like minimum level effort into a remake for it just to cash grab it.
Yeah. Well, so Assassin's Creed Mirage, that was the Egyptian one.
Oh, Origins was the Egyptian one, and I did like that. And that one, even that being said, it did suffer from some of that bloat and samey like side missions in an open world that was a little too big. Um, but I liked the setting and the history of it and being able to explore Egypt because you just don't get a lot of games in that setting. And so I still really appreciated it for that reason. Mirage is coming out actually in just a couple weeks. That one is Baghdad in the
Oh,
like I
yeah.
think 1100s. That one is a little more back to basics. They've promised that it's like more like the older games in the series, more of a 20-hour game with a sure an open world, but it's a relatively small, manageable open world. I'm actually interested in giving that one a chance. I like the Baghdad setting. Um, it's a part of the world you just don't see in media or in Western media depicted very often. So if they can pull that off, I'm actually curious about it.
Yeah. That comes out. Oh, yeah, you're right. So October 5th is when that comes out. It's coming out kind of soon.
Yeah.
The only other Assassin's Creed game I've ever been interested in was Valhalla. I thought Valhalla was interesting.
I now I played it all the way through, and I think that one might be the one I think is the guiltiest of the bloat element of it just being too big for its own good. Like there's parts of it that I really like, and like probably for the first 10-15 hours of that game, I was actually really enjoying it. But once I hit like hour 80, I was like, please just get to the ending. I'm tired of it. Like I'm really exhausted by playing it. And I finished it just out of determination and stubbornness, but like I got to a point where I just was not having fun with it anymore because so much of it felt like the same thing.
Mm, okay. Cat named Wendy says she'll play it. The Avatar game. Should do it.
I mean, hey, there's still an audience for it, and I hope that the people that it is that are interested get a game that they enjoy. Like even if it's not for me, like I don't want to put it down too much because I'm sure it's going to be an awesome experience for certain people out there. But yeah, just for me personally, it's not hitting those marks.
Yeah. All right. So that was it was state of play, right? This event was state of play.
Yeah, it was
State of,
a state of play, which those happen a little more frequently versus like the big showcases, which are like once a year, maybe not even every year. Whereas a state of play, I feel like probably every 3 months we get a state of play. Some are better than others. This one was, I think, pretty decent. Sometimes one comes out and there's nothing in it that I care about at all. So even
yeah,
having a couple is still, I'd say, for a state of play is actually a pretty good one.
yeah. So that was discussing the state of play.